Hello, and welcome to ASMR Ghost Stories. If you enjoy ghost stories that are either soft spoken or whispered, welcome. You have come to the Spooky Ride channel. Okay, that was a bit corny, wasn't it? We're gonna go ahead and just jump right into our story. But before we do, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, because I do upload on Mondays and Thursdays. So, sit back, get your headphones on, and let's go back to the past, shall we? At approximately 8:50 on October the 3rd, 1963, Colleen Butterball, secretary to Dean Sam Dahl of Wesleyan University, Lincoln, Nebraska, was on her way to deliver a message from the dean's office to a professor when she opened a door and walked into an office that was in the past. As Butterball entered the first room of the professor's suite, she suddenly smelled a musty, intensely disagreeable odor. The room was filled with a deathly silence. Standing before her was a tall, black-haired woman dressed in a floor-length skirt. The woman took no notice of Butterball and raised her right arm toward the top right-hand shelves of an old music cabinet. The tall woman was not transparent, but Butterball knew that she wasn't real either. While Butterball looked at the woman, her whole body just faded away all at once. Butterball looked out the window. It was then that she received the fright that sent her hurriedly scurrying from the office. There were no modern buildings or streets anywhere in sight. In fact, most of the campus was just an open field. All at once, Butterball realized that she was no longer on the college campus in the year 1963. Fearing that she had somehow stepped through a door into another time dimension, she quickly fled the room. Once back in the hallway, she was assured that she had returned to the present. The startled and confused secretary hurried back to her desk in Dean Dahl's office. She tried to work, but the whole bizarre incident was too much for her to keep to herself. She entered the dean's office, and he got to his feet to help the pale and obviously shaken woman to a chair. He listened courteously and without comment to her story. Then he asked her to accompany him to the office of Dr. Glenn Callan, a chairman of the Division of Social Sciences, who had been on the Wesleyan, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, Wesleyan faculty since 1900. Once again, the secretary was fortunate to have a listener who heard her out and treated her account with respect. After a careful quizzing of Butterball and the aid of a number of old college yearbooks, Callan theorized that the secretary had somehow walked into the office as it had been circa 1920. Lengthy research managed to produce a photograph of the campus as Butterball had seen it. The picture had been taken in 1915. More investigation through the college's old yearbooks revealed the picture of a music teacher who fit Butterball's description of the woman she had seen in the office. The teacher's name was Clara Mills, who at some point in the late 1930s had died shortly before 9 a.m. in the very office Butterball had seen her in. The filing cabinet that Butterball had seen her opening was found to contain choral arrangements dating back to Mill's tenure at the college, 1912 to 1936. Psychical researchers Gardner Murphy and H.L. Clem employed hypnotic time regression as a means of eliciting further details of Butterball's remarkable paranormal experience. After they had placed the secretary in a state of hypnotic trance, they instructed her to relive and describe the events of that most extraordinary morning. Once again, the secretary heard the sound of students practicing music. She dodged the students moving from their first period classes, and then she entered the first room of the professor's suite. Although she was in a state of hypnotic regression, she was again stopped short by a very musty, disagreeable odor. Butterball told the researchers that when she first walked into the room, everything had seemed quite normal. But after about 4 steps into the room, the strong odor had hit her. She emphasized the words strong odor and said she meant the kind that stopped a person in their tracks and almost choked them. As soon as she was stopped by the odor, she felt as though there was someone in the room with her. It was then that she became aware that there were no noises out in the hall. Everything had become deathly quiet. She looked up, and something seemed to draw her eyes to the cabinet along the wall in the next room. And there was Mills, standing with her back to Butterball, reaching up into one of the shelves of the cabinet with her right hand, standing perfectly still. Butterball explained that while the woman was not transparent, she knew somehow that she wasn't real. Then, while the startled secretary was looking at her, she just disappeared. Until the woman faded away, Butterball said that she was not aware of anyone else being in the office suite. But as the one ghost was fading from sight, the startled secretary suddenly felt as though she was not alone. To her left was a desk, and she had a feeling that there was a man sitting there. She turned around and saw no one. But she still felt his presence at the desk. Then she looked out the window behind that desk, became terribly frightened, and left the room. There wasn't one modern thing out there. The street was not even there. Neither were the new campus buildings. That was when she realized that these people were not in her time, but that she was back in their time. Researchers Murphy and Clem received permission to conduct a thorough search of the university files, and they uncovered a photograph dated 1915 that depicted a campus scene similar to the one that Butterpaw had glimpsed out of the window. The two investigators thought it highly unlikely that the secretary could have ever come across the picture, or even one like it, prior to the time of her most unusual experience. They also agreed that the picture of Mills found in old yearbooks fit the description of the tall, dark-haired woman who Butterpaw had seen in the office, and they established the fact that Mills had died shortly before 9 a.m. in the same building that the secretary had entered at about 8:50 a.m. In the summer of 1970, I accompanied psychic sensitive Irene Hughes to the Wesleyan campus and the office in the C.C. White building where Colleen Butterpaw had stepped into the past. We hoped to test whether a gifted sensitive might elicit a recall of another's psychic experience. Hughes had no idea where we were, other than being on a college campus. Quote, "I know that you don't want to tell me anything about the experience tonight, Brad," she said, "but I am receiving psychically that it has to do with something that happened in one of these classrooms." Hughes walked directly to the back office of the suite. Quote, "I have the feeling that the desk was further over this way," she said, "because I feel like I want my back right to the window, you know?" She said, "I am just getting so many different impressions. People and people. So many people have been walking through here." Then Hughes began to receive an impression that made us instantly more attentive. Quote, "She came as a young lady. I see her in a long skirt that seems to open in the back. Her hair is bouffant, pompadour, rolled over. I feel her around in here very much. She seems to be a very pleasant and pretty woman involved with teaching." It seemed as though Hughes was providing us with the description of Mills. Quote, "When I look outside the window, it does not look the way it did when I was seeing it through her eyes. Those buildings weren't there. There was only a road or a sidewalk, she added. After a few more minutes, Irene said, I can see a man in this office. He came in and sat down at the desk. Then I see a secretary walking down the hall and entering the office. She walked in and tried to see him at the desk. Then I see the woman in the office, not the secretary now, but the woman who belongs in there. I can see her hair, and it is very pretty. She is very tall for a woman, and her hair is dark, but not really black. It is worn in a roll and pushed over. I can see her skirt is dark and long, and she has on a white blouse. She has a very pretty smile, and she busses herself around the office. In the 1915 yearbook, a picture of Mills bore the caption, quote, "A daughter of the gods thou art, divinely tall and most divinely fair." According to Butterball, the picture and description matched the appearance of the tall, dark-haired woman she had seen in the office. It also seemed to match the description that Hughes had divined through her psychic sensitivity. Hughes continued receiving impressions. Quote, "I see the secretary walking in and seeing the woman over there, pointing toward the wall where the filing cabinet had been. Then she looked and saw the man sitting at the desk. Then she looked out the window. I think maybe she saw him looking out the window and turned to see what he was looking at. And things weren't the way they are now." End quote. I find it very interesting that although Butterball had seen the image of Mills, Hughes seemed to be saying that the man at the desk may have been the stronger entity or vibratory force. We may have had a reverse of what seemed to be obvious to the participant. In my opinion, and in the opinions of the researchers who accompanied us to the Wesleyan campus, Hughes accurately described the image of Mills as seen by Butterball in the classic paranormal case. In speaking with knowledgeable faculty members, Mills wore that style of dress all of her life, even after the styles had changed, which made it difficult to determine the date of the paranormal scene that Butterball had witnessed. Mills joined the faculty in 1912, and it would appear that her spirit has not thought of retiring. So there you have it. What do you think? Do you think that we can experience scenes from the past stepping in, stepping out of, I don't know, would you call it a dimension? I'm not really sure. What are your thoughts? Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. I do upload twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays. And also hit that like button. It lets me know that you are enjoying these videos. And if you have an idea for a future story or experience, you can comment below. And if you have your own experience, email me. My email is in the description box, and I would love to be able to read your experience on a future story time. So until then, stay just a little scared.